Welcome back to my channel. I'm Lee W. Johnson, and today I'm going to talk about Reiki. Just some things that some people need to be aware of, really, especially if you haven't been for a Reiki session before. There's some expectations which aren't completely true. So let's get into that, shall we? Alright, so if you haven't been to my channel before and you enjoy my content, please do the usual stuff. Hit the like button, subscribe, and the notification bell. And if you'd like to support this channel so it can grow, then you can hit the join button. And if you'd like to know more about me, then you can go to my website, leewjohnson.com, where I offer a lot of services, and you can get my books and such things. I also have a podcast now, which has one official episode. The next episode will be coming out on Thursday, so listen out for that. Okay, so Reiki. I found that a lot of people who have not been for a Reiki session before, and especially someone who has not, well, isn't even aware of what a Reiki session is supposed to be or do, have some expectations which aren't completely true. One of them is that it's a massage. It's not a massage, unless of course the Reiki practitioner incorporates massage into their Reiki therapy. But just generally speaking, a Reiki session is not a massage session. So you're not going to be getting naked. You can keep your clothes on. It is advised that you take any jewelry off, and if you don't wear anything tight, especially belts around the belly area. So if you do have some pants on with a belt or something like that, just loosen the belt a little bit so that you've got free breath and things like that. But don't wear jewelry because of metal. It just interferes with the energy a little bit. But yeah, generally speaking, you don't need to get naked, and all you need to do is just lie on the massage table or whichever table the practitioner has set up for you. You just lie down on your back, and that's it. Some Reiki practitioners will work both sides of the body, so they may ask you to lie face down to begin with and then turn over onto your back. But usually it's just a session where they actually just work on the front of your body. So as I say, this might seem obvious to people who have been for a Reiki session before, but it's not obvious to everybody. So I wanted to just, make people aware of what to expect during a Reiki session and some other stuff as well. Now, when the practitioner is doing the Reiki session, they're going to work on specific points of your body. The practitioner will probably ask you if you are comfortable with them touching you or not touching you. And if you're a woman and it's a male practitioner, then just be aware that there are certain areas. For instance, when we get to the heart chakra, there are certain hand positions that we can do. For instance, just putting both hands, well, a bit difficult to do it from this position, both hands over like such. So you would have them sort of parallel to each other. Or it can actually go with one hand through the center and one hand over the top, or both, lying flat going from bottom to top. Now, obviously, if you're a woman and it's a male practitioner, you won't want them to touch you. If you know them and you trust them, then, that may be a different story. But usually they're going to ask you beforehand if you mind if they touch you or not. I do prefer contact, so I do prefer to touch the head, for instance, and the actual have contact. Reason being, I've usually got my eyes closed, and with the energy flowing through, I tend to sway a bit. So if I've got my hands hovering above a person, I tend to sway, and then I kind of keep touching them. So it doesn't really help. But if I am working on somebody who doesn't want me to touch them, I'll just keep my eyes open, and then I can keep my hands still. So there's no reason why a Reiki practitioner has to touch you. It is sometimes a preferred method. As I say, I prefer to have skin-on-skin contact, but it's not necessary. You can hover. So instead of, for instance, having the hands on the skin, actually touching the person, I can hover above, just a couple inches above. And the treatment's exactly the same. It works exactly the same. There's no difference. It's the energy flow that we're actually getting. But if you do get into a Reiki session and the practitioner didn't ask you beforehand and they start touching you, just tell them to lift their hands off. There's no reason why they shouldn't or they couldn't. Then what they're going to do is they're going to work on particular points of the body. So we start at the crown. Around the head, a lot of practitioners have different, sort of a different pattern that they prefer to work with. But generally, it's the crown, the eyes, back of the head, the temples, and then they start going down the body, starting with the thyroid, the throat. I actually often prefer to go from crown to the back of the head, and then the eyes, and then the temple, and then we start going down to the throat, to the thyroid. So the hand position is usually something like this. And then it goes to the heart, and then to the solar plexus area, and then to the sacral. Now the sacral, can't see it on the camera now, can we? The sacral is usually across your belt line, and it's hand to hand, or it can be like this, but it's across your belt line. Then it's the root. With the root, it's at the top of the thigh of each thigh. So nobody's going to be touching you on your private parts. It's going to just be on the top of the thigh, or on the top of each thigh. Then they start moving down the legs. They'll go to just above the knees, they'll go to the shins, and then they'll go to the feet. Some things to expect when going through the different areas. You might find that a particular chakra is blocked or maybe overactive. It's just a chakra that needs a little bit of extra attention. And when the practitioner is actually working on that area, you might have different reactions. One thing you might find that when you go for especially when you go for your first Reiki session, is you might just start crying. For no reason at all, you might just start crying. I did when I got my first Reiki session. The reason usually is that we build up cellular memory over years and years and years. And with the Reiki session, with the energy that's actually flowing through your body, that cellular memory starts to loosen and it gets released. And this causes intense emotions. But I mean, I found that with my first Reiki session, I just burst out crying for no reason. And it was just this flow of tears. It was like a release. It was absolutely fantastic. And every Reiki practitioner, okay, I can't speak for every Reiki practitioner, obviously, but every Reiki practitioner should understand that process. So don't feel embarrassed if it happens. But you might not cry. You might just burst out laughing. It's an emotional and not just emotional. It's a cellular release that happens, and it's just this burst of something, crying, laughter, whatever it is. But it's just this flow that happens. So don't expect it to happen, but it can happen. So if it does, allow it to happen. Don't block it off. Don't stop it because you're embarrassed or something like that. Just let it happen. The practitioner understands completely. Okay. Now, when they put their hands on the back of the head, they are obviously going to touch you because you actually ask you to lift your head up slightly. They'll put their hands underneath, and you put your head down, so you rest your head on their hands. And this is a very relaxing position, because what happens is the fingertips go just below the skull line, and they don't dig in, but there's a very slight pressure, and there's actually pressure points over here that actually relax the body. So very relaxing position and very relaxing therapy. Now, depending on the practitioner themselves, they may have the site in or developed to some point. I don't actually see energy, but I know it's there. I'm clairsentient. So usually what happens with me as I'm working on somebody, especially from the head position, because I have a view of their whole body because I'm standing above them, I'll start to know if there's any negative energy flow that needs to be worked on. And so I'll do the whole session, and then I'll go back and I'll actually work on that particular negative energy. And it may be on a side of the body, it may be a particular point in the body, but there's just some extra work that needs to be done. So after they're finished with your feet, they may come back and they may work on another area, and it may not be a chakra specifically, but they are going to target that particular area where that energy requires some more work. So, after they're finished with your feet, don't just suddenly get up. You shouldn't just suddenly get up anyway, but we'll get to that just now. Wait until they've actually finished and they say, okay, now you can sit up, and they're going to help you to sit up. Get to that in a minute. So what will probably happen is that they will go through the whole session. They will come back to this point if there is something that they need to work on. If they don't, then they'll just finish with the feet. They'll do some brushing, and then that's it. That's the session finished. You can talk during a Reiki session. If you want to give feedback, definitely give feedback. If you are feeling pain anywhere, if you're feeling strange, for instance, I recently did a session on a friend who felt like they were going to fall off the bed. Something was kind of sort of pulling them. It was like everything was tilting. And it's only when I finished the Reiki session, went back to that side and got rid of some negative energy on there, that they kind of leveled up again. But during the session, communicate. If you are feeling strange, if you are feeling any pain anywhere that doesn't seem right, just communicate it, and the practitioner will either go straight to that area and solve it, or they will end the session, depending on what it is. If it's pain, acute pain, which shouldn't be there and cannot be explained by the session itself and by the Reiki practitioner, they will probably end it and suggest that you go to a GP and get it checked out. Remember that this is a complementary practice to medicine. It's not an alternative. So you shouldn't, if you have major illnesses and major ailments, don't stop taking your medicine from the GP, and don't stop going to the GP. This is complementary. It helps to aid that treatment. Now, something else which can freak people out, it doesn't happen often, it's happened to me once or twice, is that Reiki practitioners speak about Reiki helpers or Reiki spirits. And these are very gentle spirits that come along and actually aid in the Reiki healing itself. So if at some point you feel more than two hands on your body, or if the Reiki practitioner, for instance, is at your head and you feel hands on your legs or your feet, don't panic. It doesn't mean somebody else has come into the room and is laying hands on you. It's probably a Reiki helper. They are very gentle spirits that help with the Reiki, and you can sometimes feel them actually physically touching you. But if this happens, as I say, don't panic. It's normal, it's natural, and it does happen. I'm not sure a lot of Reiki practitioners actually talk about this, because the idea can freak people out. But I think that if it happens to somebody, it can freak them out even more if they're not aware of it. So I rather tell people up front, this can happen. And if it does, don't panic. It's very gentle, and it feels great because you've got more practitioners working on your body at the same time, and the energy that actually flows is incredible. Now, with Reiki, what is actually happening is the practitioner is channeling energy through them into you. They are not giving you their own personal power or their own personal energy. They are not taking this energy from somewhere external to themselves, which could be detrimental to the environment or anything like that. It's a specific healing energy which they are attuned to. They have been tapped into, and a bit like a beer barrel. So they've been tapped into this energy, attuned to this energy, and they can therefore channel the energy. They can connect to it, they can channel it through their body and into you. So a Reiki practitioner will not feel drained after a session. They will actually usually feel energized. I always feel energized and healed myself after a Reiki session because I've had all this energy, this healing energy running through my body. Now, you'll probably find that the practitioner's hands get very hot. It can sometimes get to the point where it's very uncomfortable. If it does, just communicate that. The Reiki practitioner will probably pull off a little bit more to allow a bit more flow between the hands and your body, just so it's not as intense. It doesn't usually get too intense or uncomfortable. It's usually a very warm and comfortable sort of heat. But their hands will get warm and hot. You may feel tingling, you may feel some kind of sensation which is pertinent to transfer of energy. So heat, tingling, all those types of things. So expect that. Now, if you don't feel anything, the practitioner will probably feel a buildup of energy in their hands, which then starts moving up their arms. The reason for that is you're blocking. You're not allowing the energy to move in. The Reiki practitioner cannot force or push the energy into you. It has to be accepted. So if you are blocking it because you don't believe it, you are scared of it, for whatever reason, especially for somebody who doesn't actually believe that it's possible or doesn't believe in it at all and just rejects it outright, they're going to lie there and they're going to think to themselves, this is a load of bullshit, and they're not going to accept healing. So you do have to accept and be open to it. If you're not, don't even bother going. Okay. We're not doing this to prove anything to anybody. We're doing it to heal them. So if you go to a Reiki practitioner expecting proof, don't even bother. So if you are blocking it, and it doesn't have to be because you don't believe it or whatever reason, it could be something that's ingrained in you, embedded in you, that it has created some kind of fear. If that's the case, then try and work with somebody to actually get over that fear. But regardless of what the reason is, if you are blocking the energy, it's not going to transfer into your body. The Reiki practitioner is going to feel that build up and they're going to stop. And probably talk with you about why it's not actually being accepted. But that's the only reason why a healing wouldn't work, is because you are not allowing the energy to actually transfer from the channel into yourself. And as I say, Reiki practitioner cannot force you to have healing, cannot force the energy into you. It has to be accepted and it has to be transferred from the channel into yourself. Then I want to also talk about distance healing, because Reiki healing, any kind of energetic healing, you can actually do over a distance. It's remote healing. So two people can be on the opposite ends of the earth and the one person can give the other person Reiki healing. And this is just as good as a hands-on healing. Don't think it's any less or it's different, because obviously there's no hands-on, but it's not lesser. It doesn't work better or worse than a hands-on healing. It's mostly about intent and what's happening during the actual session. Now, with the Reiki distance healing, myself, what I do is I have a online meeting with the person. It can happen over email, or it can happen via a video conference on Jitsi, Zoom, or something like that. Just to discuss, what the person's going through, any specific ailments I need to be aware of, or anything like that. Reiki energy is intelligent, so you don't need to be specific about any ailments that you want to have healed, for instance. Reiki energy will find the place that needs to be healed, and it will heal it. But it's often good to just have a bit of background to know what's happening, what the person's going through, and things like that. Then what I'll do, usually I will do the session itself when the person is sleeping. The reason for this is that I often also incorporate a practical Kabbalistic method that I was taught, which is called identification. And this allows me to connect with the person's nefesh, their lower self, very intimately. And through that connection, I then do the healing. It's kind of like doing the healing on myself, but the nefesh is with me, and then I pull in the Reiki energy and actually heal them through the energy flowing through me, and then the session ends. But that's usually why I prefer to do a session when somebody's sleeping, a distance healing session. A lot of other Reiki practitioners, though, well, they won't use that method, obviously. I don't think many of them know the Kabbalistic method that I was taught. But most other Reiki practitioners, a lot will do it online with you sitting there on a Zoom meeting. They will do the actual session while they're there. But a lot of practitioners will set up a time where they ask you to just sit quietly in meditation for about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. Could be up to half an hour, but the usual time is 15, 20 minutes. And just sit quietly and just relax. That's all you need to do, is just sit quietly and relax. Make sure you're not going to be disturbed, and just close your eyes and just relax and let the actual energy do what it needs to do. And we find that a lot of people report sensations that start to happen as the session is being done, and it's very similar to reports from a hands-on healing. You may not feel anything. When you go into a Reiki healing session, don't expect anything. Some people don't physically feel things, some people do. Depends on the person. Some people are a bit more sensitive than others, and some people are clairvoyant, some people are clairaudient naturally. So, somebody may be in a session, a Reiki session, and they may sense a particular energy flowing, they may see colors, or if they're clairaudient, they may hear sounds around them, and things like that. So, but a lot of people are not sensitive at all. They're not clairvoyant and they're not clairaudient naturally, or not to the same degree as somebody else. So they may not feel anything. I, for instance, when I'm giving a Reiki session, I actually don't feel the heat in my hands. The person I'm giving it to can feel it, but I actually don't feel it myself. Everybody is different. Everybody has different abilities. But when I'm giving a Reiki session, as I say, I'm clairsentient, so I know where to move to. I know where negative energy is flowing, or a particular area needs a bit more attention. If there's an area or a chakra that's blocked or overactive or something like that, I just know it. It's just part of being clairsentient. But I'm not clairvoyant, therefore I do not see the energy in the same way somebody else would. So when you're going into a Reiki session, don't expect anything. Just allow things to happen naturally in the way they should be happening. But if you go in expecting to see things or feel these amazing sensations and things like that, and you don't, you're going to think it didn't work. And that is wrong. It did work. The energy did flow. It flowed through you. And it's, as I said, Reiki energy is intelligent, and therefore it's going to find the places where it needs to actually work, and it's going to work on them. So if you don't feel anything, don't think the Reiki session did not work. It did. Okay? It's very important to understand that. A lot of people come out of a Reiki session and go, well, I didn't feel anything, therefore nothing happened. But the practitioner knows something did, because they could feel the flow of energy going in. And once that flow of energy goes into the body, it's going to do its work. Okay? So just because you don't feel anything doesn't mean it did not work. Okay? Trust in that. Now, after a session, about 24, could be up to 48 hours afterwards, you could have some side effects. These side effects are very similar to going through a detox. So you may have headaches, for instance. You may even have cold or flu symptoms for a while. It's those toxins coming out of your body. The Reiki energy has gone in and it's pushing the toxins out. So it doesn't happen to everybody, but it can happen quite often. When a Reiki session finishes, especially a hands-on session, the Reiki practitioner is going to tell you it's finished and you can now sit up. But before that, just open your eyes, just get some orientation back, start wiggling your fingers, wiggling your toes, get some sensation flowing back into your body, because you may get into this state where you completely zone out and your body just becomes like nothing. You just float. So start getting some movement back, and then sit up very, very slowly. You'll probably find that you're going to be dizzy. So sit up slowly. Don't sit up suddenly and stand up, because you might fall over. Sit up slowly, sit there for a little while, and the practitioner will help you up if you need help. And then when you're ready, get off the massage table or table, whatever they're using, and then you can stand and just orient yourself. Believe me, you're going to be dizzy after a Reiki session. Then don't drive immediately. Don't finish a Reiki session, say thank you, cheers, go out the door and get in your car and drive. You probably find that the practitioner will probably sit you down for about 15-20 minutes and just talk to you, maybe give you a cup of tea or something like that. That just allows you to get your orientation back, bring you back into yourself, and then you can go and do the rest of your day. You might feel a bit spacey afterwards for a while. That's normal. But as I say, for about 24, maybe 48 hours, you could have some side effects which are very similar to a detox. Headaches, flu symptoms. You could even have diarrhea or anything like that. Doesn't happen to everybody, but it can, so just be aware of it. It doesn't mean anything's wrong. It doesn't mean something went wrong. It just means you're detoxing. Those negative energies are just being pushed out. One other thing that I've seen mentioned a couple of times, which can be a little bit confusing. There's been instances where people have been to a Reiki practitioner and everything just feels off. Like the practitioner themselves feel off, like there's something wrong. What becomes confusing is when the person has this experience, but a lot of the reviews about the practitioner are like excellent reviews, but they just get there and it just doesn't feel right. This can happen. It doesn't mean that the practitioner is evil or there's something wrong with them or anything like that. What it often means is simply that your energies don't connect, and it can happen with anybody. It's just a clash of energies, and that's all it really is. So if you do have an experience where you actually meet a Reiki practitioner and you do have that clash of energies, it doesn't mean that they're bad or they don't know what they're doing or anything like that. It just means that it's just not the right practitioner for you. So just go and find a different practitioner. Really as simple as that. That doesn't happen very often. I've read about it once, and I know somebody who's had that experience. So only 2 incidences that I've actually come across where this happens, but it can. So you know, if it does, just simply, you know, explain to the practitioner. I'm sure they'll understand. If they don't, well, tough for them. But just go and look for a different Reiki practitioner, that's all. All right, so I think that's about it for what I wanted to mention about Reiki. You know, there's a lot of these things that people talk about Reiki all the time, and they talk about going for a Reiki session, and then they get into one and they don't know what to expect. So it's good to know what to expect, but at the same time, don't have expectations. So don't expect to have all those amazing feelings. Could happen, might not. But you know, I have had a lot of people walk into their first Reiki session and go, okay, where do I put my clothes? No, you don't need to take your clothes off. Leave your clothes on, please. So there is that expectation that it is a massage session, and it's not. Unless, as I said, the practitioner is also a masseuse and actually incorporates massage into their Reiki session. But that's different kettle of fish altogether. I do offer Reiki sessions, hands-on and distance healing. If you go to my website, leewjohnson.com, you'll find distance healing there. If you're in South Africa and you're in the Four Ways Johannesburg area, you can come through for a hands-on. Just give me a shout somewhere through my contact form or my email address. Or you can go to devilmademe.co.za. You can also go to thepoppethouse.co.za. Those are the two South African sites, and both the hands-on and the distance healing are offered there as well for the South African folk. But if you're overseas, you're not in South Africa, just go to leewjohnson.com. You'll find the distance healing session there. And that's it. Don't think there's any more that I wanted to just make people aware of. So I will see you next week, Tuesday, and hopefully on Friday for the Black Hat Chat. Come and join us. We're still carrying on with Cochrane. We're doing the last article this Friday. So that's at 4 p.m. GMT. Join the live chat. And come along and just ask your questions, say hello, give some comments. Yeah, whatever you want to do. And anyway, see you there, or I'll see you Tuesday. Have a good one. Cheers.